This episode of From Tops to Bottoms contains talk of eating disorders and trauma. If you have been affected by anything in today's podcast episode, please reach out to any of the charities that will be linked in our episode description. Just remember, you're not alone.
Hello guys, gals and non-binary pals. Welcome to another episode of From Tops to Bottoms. My name is Cassie.
And my name is Sam.
And today it's going to be a bit of an intense episode. We're going to be talking about eating disorders. So if you're not ready to listen to that, then please skip this week's episode. We do not mind. However, before we begin, Sam, how are you today, Queen?
I am exhausted, to be honest with you. It's 9:15 here in China. And what time is it for you? Is it like 2:15?
Just to clarify, it's 9:15 in the evening for Sam. It's 2:15 in the afternoon for me.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, so my day is almost over and yours is just beginning.
Yeah, I'm sitting in a pair of boxers and a dressing gown. I'm not even ready I'm ready to film and that's about it, baby.
I've had a full day at work and now I'm here, I'm queer and I'm ready to record.
I knew you were going to say that.
How are you doing?
I'm good. It's my day off, which is stunning.
Love that.
I'm going for a meal later.
Oh, where are you going?
I'm going to the Merino Lounge in New Brighton.
Ooh. Who you going with?
I'm going with my girlfriend and her friend's boyfriend, Louise and Owen. They're both lovely. But I'm just so excited for tapas and an espresso martini, to be honest.
Oh, that sounds sick. I mean, what time are you going for your meal?
I think about 5:30.
Bold move, having an espresso martini past 5.
Why? Oh, keep me awake.
Yeah.
Girly, I'll be having an espresso martini at 12 o'clock at night. They taste fucking lovely. Espresso martini is the tits.
I've just realised how old I sound as well saying that.
Cassie, coffee and alcohol after 5 p.m? Upset.
Are you okay?
Don't worry, Mum. I'll get to bed on time.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I am so sorry.
But yeah, that's my plan for the day. Probably going to get a little bit drunk.
Yes, I love that for you. I'm going to bed almost immediately after we finish recording.
Stunning. Before we jump into the episode, I think it's worth pointing out that this is going to be quite a Sam-heavy episode. Sam's going to be speaking a lot. This is not because I don't want to speak. This is not because I'm hiding anything. This is just because this is Sam's opportunity to talk about her experience, and I just want her to talk, and I want this to be her safe space. So that's not because I am not feeling it today or have nothing to say on the matter. This is just Sam's time to share her experience, and I appreciate and welcome that.
Thank you. So if my voice is what irritates you, then I highly suggest you turn this off right now.
This isn't the episode for you, my gals.
So I know obviously this is primarily a sex and relationships podcast, but obviously this is quite a personal project for both of us. And I know we both want to talk about things that relate to our personal lives because we are just two normal people that have experiences. So yeah, this doesn't relate as closely to sex as previous episodes do. But I still feel this is quite relevant, and it is something I do want to talk about because I know a lot of people go through the same thing I do, and I feel quite even writing down everything that I wanted to say in today's episode, I cried. When I called Cassie to talk about what I wanted to say in the episode, I cried, and as I talk now, I literally can't even look at the screen. So
it's okay, you got this, girl. Take your time, Queen.
So yeah, just as I've already given Cassie a heads up, but as a quick heads up for you guys, I'm probably gonna cry. She says as she crying.
I wouldn't worry too much about it not being about sex and relationships. We talk about feminism a lot on here, and do you know what? this shit plays into patriarchy, this shit plays into everyday life, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But if you are here for sex and relationships, sorry.
Sorry, my guys.
And I wouldn't worry about crying either, because I'm sure there's going to be an episode where I'm going to bawl, so...
So as I've kind of mentioned, this is something that I have wanted to talk about. Not really at this time, but I do feel it's quite relevant considering the new announcements that the government have very recently made. Yeah. The UK government, that is.
Okay, so I'm going to briefly explain what it is. The UK government policy paper was published on the 27th of July. And it was titled Tackling Obesity, Empowering Adults and Children to Live Healthier Lives. There's quite a few problems with the paper, to be quite honest. It's just extremely out of touch with body issues and eating disorders and disordered eating. There's a subsection called Giving Everybody a Fair Deal. In this section, the government highlight their plan to introduce calorie labelling into restaurants and cafes so people can be more informed. That's the word they used. They can make more informed choices. And by informed, I'm guessing that means lower calories. I think it's something like... me and Sam will go through exactly what's in the paper in a minute, but I think it's something like if you have 250 staff members in your cafe or restaurant, you must have calories written next to your food, which is just ridiculous.
Okay, so just going through, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullet points that I took away from this paper. They're on the first page of the paper for everyone to see. If you do want to take a look at this yourself in detail, it is on the gov.uk website for you to reference. So what they want to do is introduce a new campaign, a call to action for everyone who is overweight to take steps to move towards a healthier weight with evidence-based tools and apps with advice on how to lose weight and keep it off. They want to work to expand weight management services available through the NHS so more people get the support they need to lose weight. Publishing a 4-nation public consultation to gather... Oh, Jesus fucking Christ, this is putting me to sleep already. Publishing a 4-nation public consultation to gather views and evidence on our current traffic light label to help people make healthy food choices. Introducing legislation to require large out-of-home food businesses, including restaurants, cafes and takeaways with more than 250 employees, to add calorie labels to the food they sell. They also intend to make companies provide calorie labeling on alcohol, which I thought they already did, to be honest. I just don't pay attention because I don't care to know. Now, this is the one I take biggest issue with. Actually, this is the one I take second biggest issue with. Legislating to end the promotion of food high in fat, sugar, or salt by restricting volume promotions such as buy one, get one free, and the placement of these foods in prominent locations intended to encourage purchasing, both online and in physical stores in England. And last but not least, banning the advertisements of foods high in fat, salt, and sugar being shown on TV and online before 9 p.m. and holding a short consultation as soon as possible on how we plan to introduce a total HFSS advertising restriction online. So, Cassie, what are your thoughts?
My first two things with this were calorie counting is, for me, one of the main things I hear from people with eating disorders that triggers them. Yes. I don't like it anyway. I don't have an eating disorder. I just don't like it. I have body image issues, but I just don't like it. I don't want to do that. Yeah. I have people in my family who get like addicted to seeing these things and love calorie counting it and love doing that. And I see it such a triggering thing for so many people. The second thing is just how disgustingly out of touch the UK government is again with people in poverty. Like the one, where is it? The one to end promotion of foods and high fat, sugar and salt for like promotions and like, so that would be buy one get one free, or buy two for the price, buy three for the price of two. Oh my god, it's just goes to show that none of them know what living in real poverty is.
Absolutely.
And when I read that, I just thought, do you just want poor people to die? Which seems like such a jump, and it seems like such a heavy thing to say, but that's what it seems like. Every single new campaign they bring out, every single new legislation, it's all aimed at like giving people in poverty less things. And if you're going to take away buy one get one free, what about large families that have no money, that rely on things like that? If you want people to eat healthier, then lower the price of healthier foods. How do you expect to get a large increase of like weight loss, which clearly seems like that's their goal, which is just fucking ridiculous, when it's, 29 pence for a packet of biscuits, but it's 3.99 for a basic fucking salad? Do you know what I mean? I think it's ridiculous. I think it's fucking absurd, and I worry for my friends with eating disorders, to be honest, because even with things like Fitbits, they monitor you. So I don't like Fitbits personally. It's a bit of a joke in my family that I don't like them, because my mum's constantly talking about how many steps and calories she's lost, blah blah. But why do you want to monitor yourself so closely? Like, let yourself live. And I feel like that's a choice. To wear a Fitbit is a choice, but this is a government guideline. This is a government legislation. Sorry, that we have no say in. And I think it's fucking ridiculous, and it's so harmful. And I think that it just goes to show just how out of touch the government are again.
And if you think of things like, for example, like a tin of beans, like people things that you would buy, like things I would buy when I was dirt poor, like just a tin of beans that could make 2 meals, like that, they're really high in salt and they're really high in sugars. Are they now going to be taken off any kind of promotions? Like, a lot of people rely on this shit.
Tinned goods are high in salt, and people in poverty do rely on tinned foods. I did when I was fucking dirt poor. Tinned food was like my go-to, and it's keeps well, and as you said, it can do 2 meals. This is dangerous. Like, this is dangerous in more ways than one, but it's mainly for people in poverty and people who are suffering with eating disorders. They seem to be the victims in this.
The one that I took most issue with was the expanding weight management services available through the NHS. Now, I'm all for money being put into the NHS in most capacities. However, this to me seems like code for, we're going to start handing out weight loss surgeries and recommending them left, right and centre, when all of these weight loss surgeries are irreversible and life-changing. And like, something I'll go into a little bit later is my experience with weight loss management services on the NHS. And my doctor was not so keen at first to recommend weight loss surgery, but I think this is going to encourage that quite a lot.
I didn't think of that,
Yeah, I think it's really you're going to see a spike in it.
Wow. Do you know what? I didn't think about that. I thought that it would be, so what you mean is we're going to see more like pamphlets and like posters in our like GP surgeries and stuff. I didn't think about that. That's fucking dangerous. Yeah. That's dangerous.
Now, admittedly, as I said before, I have not read the whole paper, so they may have gone into that in detail and said that they might not be offering that. But weight management services, to me, screams gastric bypass, gastric sleeves, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So, probably because that's just my experience with it. But
no, I hadn't thought about that, and I think that makes sense. And from the whole paper, you can see I've read quite a lot of the paper. The whole like vibe, the whole message is, as a country, we need to slim down. So it wouldn't surprise me them putting money into that. How are they putting money into that when there's so many other things that they can be putting money into? I think we're getting confused with like weight being the center of health, like the pinnacle of health. Like, weight isn't the main thing to do with your health. Oh.
Put some money into the mental health services, bruh.
Yeah, man. Fucking hell.
One sentence that I picked out of the first page of the paper that I read it and I was like, okay. So they say, children in the most deprived parts of the country are more than twice as likely to be obese as their peers living in the richest areas. This is sowing the seeds of adult diseases and health inequalities in early childhood.
Wow.
So, I mean, think of why that is, fella. And what got me the most is Boris Johnson came out and he was like, I've lost all this weight just by jogging. Mate, you had COVID-19 not that long ago. Like, are you telling me we should all get COVID-19 and lose a couple of stone? Like, I'm not buying it, bro.
Also, right, yes, he's the Prime Minister, so he does have a heavy job. That's not me having any sympathy for him, by the way. I think he can go fuck himself. But a lot of like lower class people are working their asses off just to survive. Who's got time to go on a jog in the morning and a jog in the afternoon when they're fucking exhausted from coming back from like 12-hour shifts or working 2 jobs? Like, if you're saying that obesity is highest in the most deprived groups, think about why. Think about the price of food. Like, have an actual think about why. Like, well done. No shit, mate. Thank you so much for pointing that out. That's your fucking issue, not our issue.
Yeah.
Like, round of applause for you for pointing out the fucking obvious, and also for pointing out a problem that is caused by you Tory knobhead. Oh.
See, I laugh. It's not funny in the slightest, but I just laugh at how out of touch this fucking knobhead is.
How detached from reality do you have to be to point out an issue? I'm getting pissed off now. To point out an issue that you have caused, and then again demonize lower class families and people. Like, how out of touch you have to be, how fucking stupid you have to be, how up your own arse you have to fucking be. Moving on. What did you get from banning advertisement after 9 p.m. and until 9 p.m?
What's the fucking point? Like, literally, what is the point? It gives me this whole impression that they're trying to say this food. I take issue with the fact that they're likening it to like a watershed, to like this dirty, inappropriate sexual activity. Like, I don't like the association that has with food being dirty. Like, the links, I don't like that at all.
The links that he's making, the subconscious links that he's making, or they are making, are harmful. Like, you may not think like, oh, I'm not going to make a harmful link between food because it's now like a watershed sort of thing.
Yeah.
You might be, bro. It's a subconscious thing. Oh, we can't show that until 9 p.m. Why? Do you know what I mean? And they slowly did it with like fizzy drinks, didn't they? Every drink's going to be like sugar free now. Yeah.
Like, are you going to ban all the M&M adverts until fucking 9 o'clock?
Yeah, like, what the fuck is going to happen after 9 o'clock? All the swearing and all the sugars coming out. Fucking hell.
What a party, bro.
Yeah, man.
Also,
Cassie is like, I'm staying up till 9.
Also, do you think fat people go to bed at 9? Like, I mean, it's 9:30 and I'm still awake here, bro.
That's the fucking funniest thing ever. Oh. Mate, I stay up till like 2 a.m. I'm still seeing all them adverts. Shut up. Oh, fucking funny that.
So, as I briefly mentioned before, I did want to talk about like my experience, and obviously it is quite topical now. So, I guess now is when I'm going to do it. And a term you've heard me use is eating disorder, which can be quite commonly confused with disordered eating, and they share a lot of similarities, but they're not quite the same. So disordered eating is a term used for unhealthy eating behaviors and worries about body image. And a lot of the common behaviors of disordered eating are dieting and restrictive eating. And a lot of them can include binge eating, laxative abuse, self-induced vomiting. But eating disorders are extreme cases of disordered eating. So a lot of the main eating disorders that people will have heard of and have familiarity with is anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. And And people generally are only diagnosed with eating disorders if they meet very specific criteria related to body weight and eating behavior. So a lot of people will only be diagnosed with anorexia if they're under a certain BMI, when a lot of people will have undiagnosed anorexia. But because they don't fit these categories, they cannot get the same treatment as everyone else, which is a lot in itself. Because I know a lot of people that have struggled with restrictive eating and have struggled to get their doctor to take them seriously because they don't meet that BMI criteria. Okay, so I have had an issue with my weight for as long as I can remember. Bear in mind, I'm 29 years old now, and this has always been very prevalent in my life. My poor relationship with food started quite young. Friends would make comments on my weight. Family would make comments on my weight. People would pinch my thighs, pinch my arms. And I remember very specifically being told by a family member, I was 12 years old, right? I was 12 years old. And I bought this shit and I thought I was the shit, right? It had like these like split sleeves and I felt like I had wings. And it probably looked fucking ridiculous. And it was cropped. It was slightly cropped. And I remember I was 12 years old and I was told to dress for my size at 12 years old. So I've always been quite a chubby kid. And I'm fine to admit that. I have always been a chubby kid. But that, I remember, from that point, I avoided cameras. I went through... There's a phase in my teenage years where I'm in no photos. It's almost like I don't exist because I refused to get in front of the camera because I had such a poor relationship with food and relationship with myself and my mental health and my body. And like I remember going to the beach with family and I'd wear jeans and hoodies because I felt like I had to cover up. Like I felt like I was disgusting because I'd had those comments from such a young age in those developmental years that it really sat with me, and it still sits with me. And that definitely, by that family member, that will have been a throwaway comment, something they didn't even think of, but I remember it at 29 years old. At 29. So bear in mind, this whole time I've been struggling with my weight, struggling with my body image, and this big, I say big incident, because you know what, I'm not even gonna downplay it, because it is a big incident. This is what really kicked it off for me. Is I was 18, right, and I was working for Domino's Pizza on County Road in Walton, and it was an early morning shift, and I was there about an hour early, and I wanted to get some food. So I went and sat in McDonald's and I got myself a breakfast, and I was sat on a table by myself and I was eating my breakfast like a normal person. Sorry.
It's fine.
Ooh. And then this group of teenagers came and sat on the table in front of me, and as I was eating, I watched them take pictures of me and laugh at me. And I, as soon as I clocked what they were doing, I picked up my food, I left, and I locked myself in the office of the shop and cried. Probably for about an hour. And from that point, I had such a big issue with eating in public, and I couldn't do it alone. Not that I wouldn't, I physically could not do it alone. I could go out for meals with my partner, I could go out for meals with friends, but I couldn't do it by myself. So from that, my relationship with food then just took it took the quickest downturn that, I don't know, I would binge eat at any opportunity, and then I'd make myself sick, and it spiraled very, very quickly. I was living at university at this time, and all of my money went on food, and I just felt like I was so out of control. Even now, thinking about it, it makes me so sad to think about, obviously, because I can't even speak about it without crying. I just felt disgusting the whole time. I tried to get help when I was 19. So I went through this for about a year before I was like, okay, I could do with probably talking to someone. And I went to a clinic in Runcorn, and I sat down with a therapist, and she asked me all these questions, asked me about shift work, asked me where I worked, what I did, was at school, and
Sorry,
told...
This is a therapist?
Yes, this was a weight management service.
Right, okay, got it.
Yeah, so this was a therapist through a weight management service. Right. And she asked me all these questions, and she told me at the end of the session, she was like, I don't think you need any help. I think you're an opportunist. And I was like, what does that even mean? Yeah. She's like, I think you're an opportunist. You just eat where you can. You eat what you can. And I was like, okay. And I just took that at that point. I was like, all right, cool. I don't need any help. Yeah, she said I was an opportunist.
That's disgusting. Who matches that word with anything to do with weight or eating?
Yeah, she called me an opportunist. So I was like, okay, cool. I don't need help. I'm sound. In the meantime, obviously, everything is just going south. And that's my first experience with a weight loss management. And I've had 3. So not all of them have gone great. I ended up dropping out my 3rd year at university because it got so bad. I was so depressed. I was so anxious. I couldn't control my eating. And the biggest thing, a lot of people around me didn't know I was struggling because I got so good at hiding it. I got real good at hiding it. Apart from the fact I never had any money because it all went on food. And I'm not being dramatic when I say all of my money went on food. It all went on food. Food or bevies. So, and I was so anxious about being in public as well after this thing when I was 18. Whenever I was anywhere with friends having food, I was looking around me at everyone around me, seeing if anyone was staring at me, seeing if anyone was laughing at me. I was planning on making quick exits. As soon as I sat down somewhere, I would plan a quick exit, and how to interact with as few people as possible. I wouldn't get up to go to the toilet. I wouldn't get up to put anything in the bin because I thought people were going to laugh at me. And it felt like a vice around my chest whenever I went anywhere.
Fuck those people at Mackey's.
Yeah, man. See, like, they're not even going to think about this. That like, these kids now, then this isn't even going to be in their memory. They're not even going to think about that now. Those pictures are long gone. Those memories for them are long gone. However, this set off something so awful and so dark in me that I don't like to think about it, but I do all the time.
Yeah. Fuck them. These guidelines are enabling people like that to have those views on fat people. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the word fat? Because I know that I like to sort of reclaim the word, but I know some people get uncomfortable with it because I don't think it's an insult. I don't think it's, like
a lot of words, I think it's all about the weight behind it. No pun intended. I use it I refer to myself as fat, and it's often met with a lot of, oh, you're not fat. It's like, I am though, like, and that's okay. I can be a lot worse. I can be a lot of worse things. Like, I'd rather be fat than manipulative.
Yeah.
I'd rather be fat than a Tory. So
if there's any message from this, it's I'd rather be fat than a fucking Tory.
yeah.
Same.
So I take no issue with it unless you're going to call me a fat prick, in which I am fat and I'm a prick, but don't call me a fat prick because I'm a sensitive soul. So I think if you're using that word with malice, then get fucked.
Yeah, truly.
So.
I think that is worth pointing out though, that like if either one of us uses the word fat, we're not doing it we're not like demonizing overweight people by using the word fat. We're not using it as like a slur or an insult. Like it's sort of like a.
I prefer the term fat to obese.
Yes, same, because obese is like is so clinical, and it's like that is even like deeper within me. To be fair, that like obese, like the wee fit calling you obese.
Yeah. I think it just sounds, for me anyway, it sounds so close to beast, and like it's to me it feels quite dehumanizing.
Well, I think that's a good point. Actually, it does sound like that. I'd never thought about that. But I feel like fat's used on the streets, if you will, and obese is used. And obese is used at your doctors. So it's like a professional calling you an insult. That's why I don't like it, because it's literally just someone in a white coat calling you fat.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like it.
I'm fat in the streets and fat in the sheets.
Same.
So for fuck's sake.
I can't believe I just said fat's used on the streets. What's wrong with me?
So the time between this incident when I was 18, that was, how old was I? Not how old was I was 18, you fucking muppet. What year was that? What year was 2009? No. Yes, 2009. I would have been 18. So I started therapy. I went to CBT in 2017 when I was 25 years old. So between 18 to 25, I had this awful relationship with food. And I was on the waiting list for therapy for a year and a half. A year and a half. I was on a waiting list. I was calling every month because it was getting to a point I could not deal with it. And I went to the doctor and I begged for therapy. I begged for it. And I finally got it. And I was diagnosed with bulimia. And I don't actually think I've ever said that out loud to anyone but you before.
Well done, Queen.
Even when I told my ex-partner, I only showed him the letter. I didn't say it out loud.
How did he respond?
He didn't understand, so I will cut him some slack. But there were always jokes made about my weight.
From him?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck him.
I also played into these jokes about my weight because I was so self-conscious. It felt like I was steering into the skid. But yeah, there were a lot of jokes about my weight, which just made things worse, really.
After the diagnosis?
Before and after, yeah.
And after? Fuck him.
And there were times where I was angrily confronted about secret eating. Yeah, and I was very angrily confronted.
You were confronted.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so one of the things that I used to do is I would secretly eat, which is quite common in people with binge eating disorder and bulimia, is that you secretly binge. And I used to do that a lot. And I remember they found some things I'd eaten, and they were literally just like, "What is this? What the fuck is this?" And I couldn't explain it away. And I don't remember exactly what was said because I was just hysterical. And it was an argument we had more than once.
What was his argument?
That I shouldn't be spending all my money on these foods. And like, I get that to an extent because, yeah, all my money was going on foods. However, it was like a compulsion. It was a compulsion.
The bigger issue, yeah.
Yeah, it was a compulsion. And yeah. So I started CBT, and I know CBT doesn't work for a lot of people. And I spent my whole first session in tears. You think I've cried quite a bit now, and I think I've cried quite a bit now. However, I was in that session for an hour and I could not speak because it just felt like years and years and years of this was finally pouring out of my mouth. And it was just everything that I had repressed for so long finally coming out, and I could speak to someone without judgment, without anger. And she helped me unpack the way I was thinking, because I'd say something to her and I'd be like, "Oh, I know it's stupid to think that," and she's like, "No, like, don't deny yourself those thoughts, but also think back, why do you think that's stupid to say? Or why do you think people would think this about you?" And like, it allows me, even now I still use those coping mechanisms, and I think I try and unpack my own thinking. And I know you've seen me spiral hundreds of times, but again, you'll sit there and you'll be like, "Okay, why do you think that?" And I can start following that change. Sometimes I just need that little prompt. And CBT really helped me recognize what was triggering me. And I found a lot of healthier coping mechanisms. So it was recognizing when I was upset and why that really allowed me to break away from the whole food as a comfort thing. I still sometimes use food as a comfort now because no one's fucking perfect, but I do not rely on it anywhere as heavily as I used to.
Yeah.
And I could not speak highly enough of my therapist. Shout out, Stephanie. You're definitely not listening, but just know that I love you.
That's funny. I know you're not listening, girl.
But she gave me homework, and she had me build up, because one of the, obviously, following the McDonald's incident, which, by the way, I had forgotten about until I got to CBT. So I had forgotten about the incident in McDonald's until
Oh my goodness.
CBT.
Really?
Yeah, and she was like, "I really want you to think back to when this first started." And I had this little memory, and I shit you not, right? It was like, as soon as I remember that one thing, I was like, "Holy fucking shit. That's it. That's literally it." And I know people talk about repressed memories, but it's a thing. It's this thing I completely repressed and completely forgot about. I pushed it to the back of my mind until I went to CBT. So obviously I'm talking about it all in chronological order now because I have hindsight, and hindsight is 2020. But at the time, I wouldn't be able to tell you why I was still feeling the way I was feeling at 22. I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't have thought back to that incident at McDonald's. But yeah, that truly was it. So she gave me homework to build up to sitting and eating in public. And at the time, I thought I was going to throw up. She was like, "Okay, I want you to go into a restaurant. I just want you to sit down. You don't have to buy anything. I just want you to sit down by yourself. And then if at any point you feel uncomfortable, just leave." And it was little things like that built up and up and up. And I remember I had a session and I felt so good. And she was like, I want you to go get lunch in town by yourself. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And I stood outside Dunkin' Donuts in St. John's, which is just a bizarre place to have lunch. And I stood outside and I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go in. I went in and I ordered a sandwich and a donut and a coffee. I sat down and I had lunch by myself. And like, it doesn't sound like something big to the average person, but for me,
I think that's boss, considering you said before you physically couldn't do it. It's not that you didn't want to, you physically couldn't do it. Walking out of that place must have just been like, fuck me, I am so proud of myself. Like, what have I just done? So like, fucking hell, Sam.
Like, I sat down, I had a podcast on, and I just ate my sandwich. I like tuned out everyone else around me. I ate my sandwich, I had my coffee, and had my donut, and I got up and left. And at that point, I was like, holy shit, I can do this. And it was about a year later. It was about maybe 6 months, a year later, that I remember sitting down in Arndale Food Court, because I was working at Harvey Nicks at the time and I was in Manchester. Sat down in Arndale Food Court without a second thought by myself and had a Taco Bell. Not the healthiest of meals, I'll give you that. I just sat down without a second thought and did it. And as I sat down, I was like, holy shit, like, I literally didn't even think twice about doing that. And it just, I cannot speak highly enough of my experience of CBT.
It sounds like, I was thinking when you were talking, it sounds like your therapist, Stephanie, her goal was for a happier life for you and how to cope with things, rather than, how are we going to slim you down? And like, I think that I have such a bad view of like to the doctor about weight and stuff, because the end goal is always, let's get you thin. Yeah. And from what you're saying about Stephanie, it doesn't seem like that, and I fucking love that. So big up, Stephanie, you're a legend.
When I went for my CBT, my weight was never brought up. If I brought it up, that's when we talked about it. She never brought it up. Yeah.
Really?
Never brought it up. Yeah. And I remember that because I remember thinking that she was going to talk about it all the time. She not once brought it up unless I prompted her to talk about it.
That makes sense though. Like, see, even in my head, I'm like, if you, like if I was to sit down and write down what I thought would go on in that room, maybe if I'd thought about it a bit more, I'd be like, well, no. But that does make sense. Of course it wouldn't be brought up. Yeah. I fucking love that.
She was more concerned about, a lot of the times we didn't even talk about my eating. It was dealing with a lot of anxiety issues and the perception I had of people's perception of me. Big up, Stephanie.
Yeah, man, she sounds class.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise, that was not my last experience with the weight management services.
Not funny, just the way you went. Surprise, surprise. Cilla Black.
So, as this was going on, I was diagnosed with an ovarian cyst. And doctors refused to operate on me because I was overweight. And I can't remember. I think this was after I went through therapy. Yeah, this was after I went through therapy, that they put me on metformin. And I don't know if you're familiar with metformin, Cassie, but metformin is a diabetes drug.
Yeah, I worked at I remember you telling me in China, like I used to work at a doctor's when you said metformin. I was like, pardon? Yeah.
And they put me on metformin for weight management. And it did help me lose weight because I was sick all the time and shit in my pants every time I ate. So, yes, that was why it worked. They put me on such a high dosage. They were like, we're going to get this weight off you real quick. And yeah, that was highly unpleasant.
Even if you didn't have an eating disorder, they could have triggered one by doing that. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so shitting my pants and vomiting all the time equals a thinner body. Okay, when I'm off metformin, I may continue that. That's so fucking dangerous. Are people fucking stupid? You're a professional.
Yeah. So this, for me, is where the timeline gets a little bit fuzzy because I was going through a lot at this kind of time. So I was on metformin and I was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome. And metformin is a common drug that they do prescribe to help with polycystic ovary syndrome because you are also commonly diagnosed with insulin resistance, which they diagnosed me with as well. But that can be managed with a change in diet. It's the same way you're kind of borderline diabetic, in a sense. So yeah, I was on metformin. Doctors were refusing to operate because I had a huge cyst because I was overweight. Now, I'm sure I've told you this story before, but my ovarian cyst got to 20 centimeters across in diameter. 20 centimeters. And that's fucking big, bro. It had, when my doctors finally drained it, it had 2 liters of fluid inside of it.
So can I just, before you continue, I'm so sorry,
yes,
I just would like to clarify.
fine.
So they didn't want to operate on you because of your weight?
Yes.
Why?
Because of the risk with the anesthesia.
So was there no risk with keeping a ovarian cyst of that size?
Oh, absolutely. It was much of a muchness by the end, because
wankers.
There was a day I woke up and I knew something wasn't right because I was lightheaded as fuck. I could barely walk. I was finding it difficult to walk. I was finding it difficult to walk with a cyst this size anyway because it was...
Holy shit, really?
It was pressing on my sciatic nerve. It was pressing on my bowel. It was causing crippling stomach cramps. Which I later found out was because my fallopian tube was stretched the whole way across this ovarian cyst. And so I ended up nearly passing out, and I went to the women's hospital just like, I was like, someone has to look at me now. And they admitted me there and then and operated within 2 days. Wow. So they could have clearly done it.
Wow. And 2 days?
Yeah.
And you've been waiting that long with a fucking cyst that big?
Yeah. I waited nearly a year. This all happened like within maybe 8 or 9 months, where it was diagnosed, it was 5 centimeters, and then it got to 20 when they finally removed it. And it had 2 liters of fluid in it. That is a big bottle of Coke. A heavy, heavy bottle of Coke. And I was carrying that around.
Wow.
Yeah. And then after that, I was referred to weight management again, because I was worried about fertility problems. And they suggested I go for a gastric bypass. That's what they wanted me to do. Yeah. And I lost 1.5 stone in my first couple of weeks of management because I'd had this surgery. And they're like, yeah, this is great. Keep it up. And I was like, I cannot keep this up. Like, I can't keep it up. And I was still on the metformin.
Still?
And still on the metformin. I only came off metformin just before I came to China.
Shut your fucking mouth.
Swear to God. I came off it because I was like, I should still be on it. But I came off it because I was like, I'm going to struggle in China anyway. Like, I'm not putting myself through the metformin when I don't have to. And I just
absolutely not.
Yeah. And I underwent counselling for a gastric bypass because I genuinely felt like it was my last resort to lose weight. And that was still, at that point, having been through therapy and still having healthy coping mechanisms, I still felt like that was my last resort. Which is clearly not the case because you know me and you know I've lost like 50 pounds since I've gotten here. Not even through disordered eating or anything. So when I moved to China, I stopped looking at calories or what's in the food, mainly because I can't fucking read it. But it allows me to recognize my own feelings after I eat food. So rather than my emotions, I think of how it makes me feel. Does it make me feel full of energy? Does it make me feel lethargic? And I plan my diet that way rather than based around caloric intake. And I feel so much better about that. Weight loss, I'm not going to lie and say weight loss was never the goal for me. It's not really much of a goal anymore. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. But it's not my primary focus anymore. And I feel like that's what helped me lose a fair bit of weight when I got to China. And like, it wasn't my primary focus for a while. Now, obviously, you were here when I first got here. And you know I've relapsed a couple of times since I've been here because it's difficult. Relapsing anywhere, at any time is possible. But like, I feel like in China as well, when I was rejected from jobs because of my weight, and people take my picture in the street and people make comments about it, and I'm kind of not over it now because it does still bother me, but I'm a lot more used to it now. So I can deal with that a lot better. But at first it was hard. And I remember being at Lex's with you at a party, and I was like, I'm going to weigh myself. Yeah. And you were like, don't do it. And I was like, I'll be fine. I'm going to do it. And I did it. And I remember looking at you.
For context, me and Sam didn't have scales. We were in Lex's house who had scales.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to weigh myself. And you're like, Sam, this is not a good idea. And this was like maybe a month after I first got to China. And I was in a bad place anyway. Yeah. And you were like, Sam, you're going to regret it. You're going to regret it. It's going to ruin your night. And I was like, no, I'll be fine. I've got it. And then I went and weighed myself on the scales, obviously. And I came back and I sat down. And I remember looking at you. And as soon as I made eye contact with you, I burst into tears and I ran and locked myself in the bathroom. And I made myself sick. And that isn't the only time it's happened here.
I just want to clarify, I didn't say it's going to ruin her night because I didn't think she wouldn't be happy with the numbers she's seeing. Yeah. I just knew she wouldn't be happy with any numbers she's seeing, and I just knew that standing on any scale would be triggering. Yeah. It wasn't I was like, oh, you're not going to like what you see. Just want to clarify that. It was just...
Yeah. I'm sorry if it came off that way, but obviously you know and I know what you meant, but I realised how that kind of came off.
I just knew that like that's a trigger for Sam, and that it just really no matter what was there wouldn't have gone down well.
Yeah, and I remember I did it again. I weighed myself a couple of weeks ago, and I remember saying to you like, I've just weighed myself, and you're like, Sam, what did you do that for? And I burst into tears again, and it ruined my week. And I'm so sad that it still makes me feel like that. So this is an ongoing struggle, and I don't think this is something I will never struggle with. It'll get better, and then it'll get worse, but then it'll get better. And it very much comes in ebbs and flows. And CBT has obviously helped with coping mechanisms, but that doesn't mean the problem isn't still there in some capacity.
Yeah.
My only positive now is that I'm able to pull it back. I can pull it back.
Do you think... Okay, two questions actually, and they both lead into each other. Okay. Just taking it back to when you were in England, how were like your nearest and dearest, so like your best friends and your parents? We spoke about your partner.
I sat with my parents, and I feel like particularly my mum, I feel like I didn't offload as much as I should have. And when I say offload, I mean discuss. Because again, I still use very toxic language towards myself. And that is something I still recognise. I probably didn't discuss with my family and friends as much as I should have. And I told my mum how much I struggled with my mental health and with my eating. And I'll be honest, I don't remember too much of what she said. I remember she told me, obviously, I could talk to her about anything. But I think at that point, I didn't want to talk to my family about it because I recognise that whether it comes from a place of love or not, sometimes throwaway comments really upset me. So I try not to bring it up around a lot of family members. My friends, some of my friends were the same. One friend in particular told me I wasn't trying hard enough to lose weight more than once. And
the whole you don't want it enough.
Yeah.
Shite.
Which I've had like a personal trainer tell me at like a gym, like I didn't want to be skinny enough. And I just, it felt like I still couldn't really talk to anyone about it. Although, yes, I had that incredible experience with CBT, I still kept a lot of my struggle to myself. As I said to you, I didn't say that I had bulimia out loud. Like, I let my partner look at the letter. Like, I don't think I ever showed my parents the letter. I don't even think I ever told my mum I was diagnosed with bulimia. I may have done. I don't remember. It's only recently that I felt comfortable enough to talk about it, kind of. So yeah, if you'd have asked me to do this podcast a year ago, I'd have been like, nah, absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? That literally leads into the second question. Do you think that's because you're then away from those people? Like, you obviously got over a relationship with said prick, that ex-partner, just before you moved to China. Do you think that is it you're away from the environment that created that for you, not just like people you're around, just like the country, you know what I mean? Obviously body image is a huge thing in China too.
Yeah.
But do you think it's because you're in a completely different environment with completely different people, so you can sort of reboot? Or do you think it's because like you no longer have those comments around you?
I think it's a mixture of both.
Right.
I think being as far away from England, because I remember obviously when I wanted to get away from England, I wanted to be as far away from England as possible. I feel like it has given me the opportunity to effectively, as you said, reboot. And being alone has really given me time to think about what I want and how I deal with myself. And it's really taught me how to rely on myself rather than other people around me. And being away from the comments does help. However, I do recognize that I isolated myself a lot in England by not talking about it. And I feel like maybe if I had talked to these people, maybe if I had talked to different people about it, my experience would have been different. But I still hid it away from a lot of people. So my answer is a mixture of both.
Okay.
Although being in China has given me the chance to reboot, China comes with its own challenges. Obviously, as I briefly mentioned before, the very first school that I worked at didn't want to hire me because I was fat. And they fired me because I was fat. And people take my pictures on the street because I'm fat and white. And people talk about my weight to my face. They say, "Oh, you're fat." And I'm like, "Yes, queen, I know." And little children will be like, "Why are you so fat?" I'm like, "I like to eat bread, mate. Like, I don't really know what you expect me to say, bro." And even just like last week, I had a lesson with a kid and he was like 11 years old. And he was like, "Oh, teacher, you are really fat." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. can we continue doing this painting, please?
You are really rude, my guy.
I was like, do you remember? Do you remember that time I told you I was teaching one class, and I was teaching a lesson based on the ocean.
Oh my God.
And this kid, it was my first day at this new school, and it's always the first day that's the worst, because little kids see a fat person, and if they speak English, they're like, oh my God, you're so fat. And this kid was like, oh, no, it wasn't that. He was like, oh, you are so big. And I was like, yeah, I am, my guy. Do you know what else is big? The ocean, where all the mermaids live. So if we could continue our lesson, please.
What a fucking... Oh, that's so funny.
I just think back to a couple of years ago, that the comments like that would have ruined me. And like now I can just kind of like brush them off, because first of all, they happen very frequently. And I don't really think about it too much anymore, because I could be a lot worse things than fat.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
We only think fat is a bad thing because that's what we've been told. It's not.
Yeah.
People immediately jump to, well, if you're fat, you're unhealthy. Not necessarily, my guy.
Oh, I'm unhealthy, but that's because I take the lift everywhere and not the stairs. So.
But there you go. Like, we've just been fed this idea of what being fat is, and what being unhealthy is, and what being healthy is. We've never been taught what healthy is. We've never been taught to be healthy. We've been taught to be thin. Yeah.
Absolutely hit the nail on the head there. Obviously, we both had our own struggles in China, really, didn't we?
Yeah. I remember going to a gym that I went to, and my co-teacher, Bonnie, I don't really know how I ever found the strength to go to the gym. I really don't. Like,
I really don't either. So, fucking props to you, bro.
Because people get scared to go to the gym in England because you're like, oh, like, of course, it's an anxious thing. But in China, when we say people stare at you in the street, they stare at you. I had bright blonde hair, big eyes, glasses. I'm white. Oh, God, my tits. And I'm fucking chubby as fuck. Like, so people would stare at me. And I remember going to the gym, and I was having a real bad day about it. A real bad day. And Bonnie was saying something to me. I can't remember how the conversation went. She came to the gym with me. We were in like a not very expat friendly area of Beijing. So like I was like the only expat, and people would stare. And I was just angry. So I said to her on a translation app, I said that, China's idea of beautiful is wrong. And she was like, do you not think I'm beautiful? And I was like, no, I think you are. But then I put again in the translation app, like, in China, fat equals ugly. And she just looked at me and went, yeah, it does. And I was so like, oh, wow. Because I thought she was going to say, oh, no, you're beautiful, but you're fat. But she didn't. She was just like, yeah. And I was so sad because I watched all these extremely, extremely thin girls. Like, they'd starve themselves and they'd do stupid things. And I was like, baby girl, you're like a size 4. Please stop. You know what I mean? Like, be happy before you're thin. Like, who cares? But that was probably one of the reasons I left China, because I just couldn't take the body image issues. Yeah. Like, I really couldn't. They were crippling. Like, I struggled a lot in China with body image.
That's something I still get quite a lot now, is like, oh, you have beautiful eyes and a beautiful nose, but you're fat.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
thank you.
Yeah, I am, yeah. Like, I have beautiful eyes and a beautiful nose, and I am fat. Like, that's okay. Like, that's the amount of times I've said, yeah, that's okay.
China does have a very, such an issue with that. I think a lot of Asia does with like K-pop and stuff. Like, you see going around like K-pop diets. It's so wrong. I had to get out of China. Really, really did. I remember my last poem that I wrote in China was about beauty standards, and it was it was heavy. I might try find that actually for the aftercare episode. But But that was heavy. I already had like body issues before China, obviously. That wasn't like China didn't create that. But yeah, China does amplify it. So like honestly, I don't know how you've done it. I don't have an eating disorder. Obviously you said that you do, and I just don't know how you've coped in China with that, mate. Like, honest to God, like the strength you must have is just ridiculous. Like, wow.
Well, thank you. No,
Yeah, you're welcome.
in all seriousness though, like China's isolating at the best of times because I don't speak fucking Chinese, and for then people to further isolate you because you're fat, like the people you want to reach out to are the people that speak English, and the people that speak English are the first ones to call you fat, and that's just when I first got here, that just felt like I was being kicked while I was down. Now I'm just like, haha, yeah, I am. Yeah, can you actually help me figure out where the fuck this is, please? I want to go get some sick noodles. Can you tell me where this is?
It doesn't help that like it's such a thing in China to take pictures and videos as teachers. Like in my school, every day the same parents would video their child walking out the building, and I was like, my guy, this happened yesterday, what's to record? So that should just like show you like how much they'd take pictures. There'd be so many pictures taken in class while you were there. Like as Sam said before, like there was a time where she just wasn't in pictures. Like that got me so sad because same, like there's a time in my life where I'm not in any pictures. In fact, I can think of the 2 pictures I am in right now, and I hate that I wasn't in them, because I look at the pictures and I'm like, you're fine, you're really happy, like in that moment, like, but so I think like that made me so sad. And in China there's no getting around pictures being taken whether you like it or not. And I remember sitting on the floor playing with a child, and I was wearing a black turtleneck and a black pair of like thin joggers. And it seems like a weird combo, but when it's cold in China, guys, you literally wear anything you can.
And everything you can.
Yeah. And I looked slim in this picture, and Bonnie again was like, Cassie, look how thin you look in this picture, you so skinny. And then we went to the cafeteria, and I had about 40 teachers looking at this picture, and they were passing it around like, wow, well done, look how slim you look. And I was like, oh my God,
Jesus Christ.
Can I please just eat my fucking chicken and rice, and can you just fuck off a second so I can eat? And I just didn't go into the cafeteria that time because I just couldn't. No, they sort of, I don't know about you, but they'd always check what you're eating. What you're eating, but like they'd be like,
they always ask.
Yeah. And like, you know, even if we're eating the same thing, it would be like, oh, how much is she gonna have? So I just stopped eating there. Like I used to go home at that point. Like towards the end, you know, I just went home.
Yeah.
At lunch, I used to sit with them. But yeah, China. Do you know what though? With what the government are doing, we're heading that way, to be so focused on how we look and so focused on weight.
Yeah.
Like that's where we're headed. And it's so sad and it's so scary, and it makes me not want to have children, because I don't want to have a child and for them to grow up having the struggles that like you faced or I faced or like our friends face. Like, nah, I don't want to do that. If this is the way the government are going, pricks, by the way, like that's where we're heading.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Now, bear in mind, I've just spoken about my experience for probably about an hour. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a nutritionist. I can only talk about my experiences. And if this helps anyone, prompts anyone to come forward with their own experience, as Cassie and I have said before, we will always hold space for anyone that wants to get in touch with us about anything that we talk about. Everything will obviously stay between me and you, or Cassie and you. Like, we'll talk about it on aftercare with permission, and everything will always be anonymous. But I cannot stress enough that I don't want anyone to diagnose themselves. I would always say, if you are struggling the way that I struggled, please don't do it alone. Please reach out for help. Please, even if it feels like the scariest thing in the world, speak to someone that loves you. Speak to your doctor. Anyone that'll listen to you.
Yeah.
Because someone will always listen. Even if that's me, fucking 7,000 miles away in China. Like, I'll always listen.
Yeah. I think it's important to take away from what Sam said too, that, you know, you can go to a doctor and they told you that you were an opportunist, but then you kept persevering, you kept going back, and then you finally met your therapist, Stephanie, who didn't even mention your weight. So I think it's important to take away from this that, like, yes, your GP might make it about weight and your GP might prescribe you fucking metformin, but not everyone's like that. So don't have the mindset of, I'm not going to go to the doctors because this is going to happen. Yeah, it is going to happen. And if you can get through that, brilliant. But, like, persevere and you may meet someone who is like Stephanie and can help.
Yeah. I have so much that I can say about weight. I have so much I can say about fat phobia at the doctors, but I want to try and keep it fairly focused on my experience with my eating disorder. I could talk about going to the doctors about my weight for hours. I could talk about going to the gym for hours. I could talk about my body image issues for hours, but there's a lot to go through. And this is something that will come up because it's something I'm always dealing with. And I know, Cassie, you're always dealing with, and everyone is always dealing with. So it's not like this is going to be the last you hear of it. Yeah. Unfortunately for you.
As Sam said, like, my door's always open to have this conversation, but this is something that Sam knows a lot more about than I do. I know a lot about body image and body image issues and disordered eating, which, as Sam mentioned before, there's very different things. But if you are suffering from an eating disorder, Sam is probably the person to go to. We're both happy to listen to absolutely anything.
As always, but particularly today, thank you very much if you are still listening to my experiences. It does always help to talk about, and maybe one day I'll be able to talk about it without crying, but today was not that day.
I just want to say I am super fucking proud of you, mate. Like, that was hard for me to listen to, and because I love you so much, and so to be talking about that so openly must have been so difficult, and I'm so proud of you. And I don't want you to not appreciate how hard that must have been, because that must have been fucking hard. And I appreciate you, Queen.
Thank you. And I love you very much.
I love you too.
Gay. And on that note, so yeah, if you do want to speak to me, make sure, I don't even want to say make sure you follow me. You can contact me at Samantha and BJ on Instagram. We have an email address. It is hellotopstobottoms@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page, which is just which is from tops to bottoms.
My personal Instagram is @radicallove.co.uk. That is the same for my website, and my Twitter is CassRatTray, and our joint Twitter account is @topstobottoms. You are welcome to contact us on any of those.
I thought you were just going to say, you are welcome.
Thank me later, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as always, thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate you all.
Okay, before we go, I just want to say, fuck those kids in Mackey's, fuck your ex, and absolutely fuck the Tory government.
Peace out.
See you later.